Amelia Crawford had not been back to Whitford in nearly a decade. The quiet town, with its cobbled streets and faded brick cottages, held too many memories she wished to forget. Yet here she was, suitcase in hand, standing in front of the old family home. The invitation to the reunion had arrived just weeks after her mother passed away. It was her mother's last wish that Amelia return to see the family one last time. Leo, her 10-year-old son, clutched her hand tightly. He was quiet and thoughtful, rarely speaking in public, but Amelia hoped this trip might help him find his voice. As they walked up the familiar path, Amelia could already feel the weight of judgment lurking behind the curtains. The door opened before she could knock. Her eldest brother, Richard, greeted her with a forced smile. "Welcome back, Amelia," he said, his eyes cold but his tone polite. The house smelled of old wood and something faintly floral, her mother's favorite scent. Inside, Amelia saw her siblings gathered in the sitting room. There was Claire, always impeccably dressed, and Thomas, who avoided eye contact. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken resentment. Amelia had changed, but their grudges had not. Leo stayed close to his mother as the reunion began. The conversations were stilted, filled with polite questions that barely hid the barbs beneath. Amelia's heart ached with each sideways glance and whispered comment. Suddenly, a voice cut through the quiet. It was Uncle Rupert, a man known for his sharp tongue and little patience for Amelia's choices. "So, Amelia," he sneered, "still dragging that boy around like a shadow? When will you let him be like other children?" Leo's eyes widened, but he did not speak. Amelia felt the familiar sting of humiliation rising. Yet, beneath the shame, something shifted in Leo's gaze. The silence stretched longer than usual. Before anyone could respond, Leo stood up slowly. His voice was soft but clear. "I am not a shadow. I am my own person." A hush fell over the room. The family stared, stunned by the boy who had never spoken much. Amelia looked at Leo with a mix of pride and disbelief. Whatever was about to happen next, she knew this reunion would be unlike any other. The room remained silent after Leo's words. Amelia felt a strange mix of relief and tension. The family's eyes were fixed on her son, as if waiting for him to say more. But Leo simply sat back down, his expression unreadable. Richard broke the silence. "Well, it's good to see you, Amelia. Despite everything." His words were polite, but the bitterness underneath was unmistakable. Amelia knew he had never forgiven her for leaving. Claire nodded in agreement. "We all had to carry on. We made sacrifices." Her voice was sharp, full of judgment. "You chose a different path." Thomas avoided looking at Amelia altogether. He fiddled with his watch nervously, clearly uncomfortable. "Maybe it's best to put the past behind us," he muttered. Amelia took a deep breath. "I didn't come here to argue. I came because it was Mum's last wish. She wanted us to be together, even if just for one day." The mention of their mother softened the mood for a moment. Claire's eyes glistened briefly, and even Richard looked away, the tough exterior cracking. Yet beneath the fragile peace, Amelia could sense the old wounds were far from healed. The whispered comments resumed as the evening went on. Leo remained close, watching everything with quiet intensity. Later, when the others had left the room, Amelia sat beside Leo. "You were very brave," she whispered. Leo shrugged. "I just don't want them to forget who I am." Amelia smiled faintly. "Neither do I." But as the night deepened, the shadows of their past crept closer. There was a secret buried long ago, that some were desperate to keep hidden. And Leo's courage had just begun to unravel it. The next morning, the tension in the house was palpable. Amelia awoke to the quiet hum of voices drifting through the walls. The reunion had brought back more than just old memories. It had stirred things better left untouched. At breakfast, the family gathered around the worn oak table. Richard dominated the conversation, his sharp remarks aimed at reminding Amelia why she had left. Claire watched Leo with thinly veiled suspicion, while Thomas seemed distracted, avoiding eye contact and fidgeting nervously. Amelia tried to focus on Leo. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. He nodded but said little. Later, as they wandered through the garden where she had played as a child, Amelia noticed a figure standing near the ancient stone wall. It was Mrs. Whittaker, the family housekeeper, her face lined with years of secrets and quiet endurance. "You must be tired," Mrs. Whittaker said kindly. The family can be difficult after so long apart. Amelia sighed. More than I expected. It feels like they're guarding something. Mrs. Whittaker glanced around before lowering her voice. There's talk about a letter your mother left behind. Not many know, but it could change everything. Amelia's heart quickened. A letter? What kind of letter? The old woman shook her head. I can't say more. But I advise you to be careful. Some would rather the past stay buried. Back inside, Amelia shared the news with Leo. There's something more here than just family grudges, she said. I need to find out what. Leo looked up at her, eyes steady. Then we have to be ready. Whatever it is, it won't come without a fight. As the day wore on, whispers in the hallways grew louder. The reunion was no longer just a gathering. It had become a battleground where old secrets threatened to explode into the open. That evening, Amelia lay awake in the guest room, the weight of Mrs. Whittaker's words pressing on her mind. The house felt colder than before, shadows stretching long against the walls. Leo slept quietly beside her, unaware of the storm gathering just beyond the surface. The next day, Amelia found herself drawn to the old study, a room filled with dusty books and faded photographs. As she rifled through a cluttered desk drawer, a yellowed envelope slipped out, its edges worn but the handwriting unmistakable. Her mother's. Her hands trembled as she broke the seal. Inside was a letter addressed to her, written in a careful, steady hand. My dearest Amelia, it began. If you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. There are things I could never say aloud, fears and truths I hope to protect you from. The letter spoke of family betrayals, old grudges, and a hidden inheritance tied not to wealth, but to a truth that could shake their family to its core. Her mother warned Amelia to trust no one but Leo, and to be cautious of those who would seek to keep the past buried. As Amelia finished reading, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Quickly, she hid the letter beneath a book just as Richard appeared, his expression unreadable. Looking for something? He asked, voice low. Amelia met his gaze steadily. Just memories. Richard's eyes flickered briefly, then he turned away. But Amelia knew this was only the beginning. The letter was a key, and she was holding the lock. The atmosphere at the reunion grew colder as Amelia clutched the hidden letter tightly in her mind. The next morning, she decided to confront Richard, hoping to learn more about the secrets her mother hinted at. In the garden, beneath the towering oaks, Amelia found Richard pruning the hedges, his face set in a grim expression. She approached cautiously. Richard, we need to talk. He paused, wiping sweat from his brow. About what? The letter, Amelia said softly. Mother left something behind. I need to understand. Richard's jaw tightened. Some things are better left alone. You don't know what you're stirring. Amelia met his gaze, unwavering. I have to know the truth. Suddenly, Claire appeared, her eyes sharp. Talking about family secrets again? You never learn, do you? Thomas came out from the house, his voice hesitant. Maybe it's time to face what we've been hiding. The tension snapped like a brittle thread. Old resentments flared, voices rising in anger and accusation. Leo stood close to Amelia, protective. Amelia felt torn. The family she once knew was fractured beyond repair, each member guarding their own wounds. But Leo's quiet strength gave her courage. I will find the truth, she said firmly. Even if it means breaking us apart. The reunion had shifted. What began as an uneasy gathering was now a battleground of fractured loyalties and buried betrayals. Days passed, and the tension in the old house never eased. Amelia and Leo spent hours searching through old trunks and forgotten boxes in the attic, hoping to uncover more clues from their mother's past. Among dusty journals and faded photographs, Leo discovered a fragile notebook with their mother's name inscribed in elegant script. As Amelia flipped through the pages, the entries revealed a story of love, betrayal, and a secret pact made decades ago, one that bound the family in silence. That evening, as a storm rolled in, Amelia confronted her family in the dimly lit drawing room. There is more to our story than you've told, she said, holding the notebook in her hands. We cannot keep pretending the past didn't happen. Richard's face darkened. You're meddling where you shouldn't. Claire crossed her arms. Why dig up old wounds? Thomas looked down, voice barely audible. Some truths hurt too much. Leo stepped forward. Truth is the only way to heal. We can't keep living with these lies. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, leaving the room in darkness. A chilling silence filled the air, broken only by the distant roll of thunder. Amelia felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The past was not done with them yet. The morning after the storm, a heavy silence hung over the house. Amelia woke early, determined to push forward. She gathered Leo and together they returned to the attic, driven by a newfound resolve. Among the scattered papers, Leo found an old photograph of their mother with a man Amelia had never seen before. The man's face was stern, almost cold, and beside it was a note with a date from decades past. Amelia's heart raced as she pieced together fragments of her mother's life. There were whispers of a secret love affair and a betrayal that had torn the family apart. The notebook had hinted at it, but the photograph made it real. That afternoon, Amelia confronted Richard again. "Who is he?" she demanded, holding up the photograph. Richard's eyes darkened, his face tightening like a mask. "That man was the reason our family fell apart." Claire stepped forward. "We all had secrets, Amelia. Some better left in the past." But Amelia shook her head. "Not anymore. It's time to face what happened." As the walls echoed with the weight of unspoken truths, Leo stood silently beside Amelia. For the first time, he spoke in front of the family. "Secrets don't protect us. They hurt us." The room fell still. The silence that followed was heavier than any words spoken. The house was thick with tension as the family gathered one last time in the grand sitting room. Amelia held the fragile notebook close, its pages worn but powerful. Richard finally spoke, his voice low and strained. "Our family's silence was meant to protect us from pain, but it only bred more." Claire's eyes softened, regret flickering briefly. "We lost ourselves in fear." Thomas nodded quietly. "It is time to forgive, or we will remain prisoners of the past." Amelia looked around at the faces she once knew and felt the weight of years lift slightly. Leo stood beside her, no longer silent but a beacon of hope. She took a deep breath. "We cannot change what happened, but we can choose what comes next." A fragile peace settled over the room. The reunion that began with judgment ended with the first steps toward healing. Outside, the sun broke through gray skies. For the first time in years, the Bennett family dared to hope.